Okay, so we are going to begin before we get into the podcast interview with a little invocation, a little opportunity to ground. So I invite you, Reisa, just to get really comfortable in your seat. If you want to close your eyes, you can. And just first of all, start with some really deep breathing. Feel deeply rooted as we arrive here today in this podcast platform. And I'm going to read some words as a way to simply begin, and you can see how they resonate in your own heart. We thank you for this blessed day. We are so grateful to be alive and seeking the truth that reveals itself in the eyes of this beautiful beholder today, Reisa Babic, coming together to express love and service and compassion in action. We feel everyone has something special to share in this world, and we are so grateful for Reisa to be with us today to share her story and the sparks that inspired her actions in creating positive ripple effects, actualizing love in this world. Let us be inspired by her story and light in us a lantern for a cause that matters deeply to us and to our world. Today, in this podcast, we value progress over perfection, and we know that we're guided and protected on this journey of service and love with our human family. For the sake of our precious short lives, may we be leaders who care. May we be leaders who act mindfully for the greater good of generations to come. And may we listen intently without the need to fill space with sound and seek to understand rather than postulate how to interject. To our masters and teachers, our guides and guardians, please guide us to learn the lessons of living from our hearts and allowing the ripple effects of goodness, inspiration, hope, and courage to flow from our words into the positive action supporting our families, communities, and this beautiful world we've been gifted to occupy. We hear your call to express beauty in this world, and thank you. So, Reisa, before we begin, is there any other intention or practice that you'd like to do just to ground and arrive?
No, that was lovely.
Okay, good. All right. So we are going to begin our Real Eyes podcast with this beautiful guest today, Miss Reisa Babic. And I'm just going to read a short little bio, and then we're going to just get right into this. So Reisa is a single mother. She's working full time and she's living with cancer. When she's not working, she's spending time with her beautiful 14-year-old son when he isn't playing video games. And he is certainly her lifesaver. And we'll hear more about that in our podcast. She loves watching him play soccer or football. Reisa is an active volunteer with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, supporting those diagnosed with cancer and helping them understand that there is hope. Work-life balance is very important to ensuring that she is available for her son while still succeeding at work. Too many people live to work and not enough of us enjoy what we have while we're here. And Reisa is a beautiful, beautiful lantern that reminds us of that spark. So I am just so grateful, Reisa, that you are here with us on this Real Eyes podcast. And I just want to offer up an invitation for you to tell us a bit more about your story, your journey, where you were born, how you started to come into this world, and where things are for you here and now.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for asking me to be on. I mean, I'm completely honored beyond belief. Gosh, born in Houston, Texas, have two older brothers, was raised by an amazing mom and dad. Unfortunately, my mom passed away 2 years ago. March 5th will be 2 years from Alzheimer's and dementia. And grew up in Southern California in Hermosa Beach. Spent the majority of my life there. It's not what it is today, but it was a great place to grow up. Loved it. Doors always open, walking barefoot in and out of neighbors' houses, 3 blocks away from the beach, spending the summers at the beach. It was lovely. I came up to Northern California because my brother and his wife were pregnant with their first child, and I wanted to be an integral part of her life. And so I was living in Southern California at the time, and I moved up here May 1st, and she was born May 10th. And that is now 22 years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, she's now going to be graduating from college, from Chapman this summer. And I couldn't be more proud of the woman that she is, and, just being here. And so that's where, how I got to the Bay Area. And then met my now ex-husband, and had my son, September 2007, and diagnosed with cancer the day after he was born. We knew that there was something growing, some kind of something on my liver. We didn't know what it was. They didn't think really anything of it. They saw that it was growing during pregnancy. And so they induced me 3 weeks early because they didn't want the tumors to burst during pregnancy, during delivery. So, he was a healthy 7-pound, 4-ounce baby boy, 21 inches long.
So as the big football player that he is now and soccer player, he came out very healthy and strong.
Oh, he did. He did. And hasn't stopped growing since.
Yeah.
So yeah, woke up, the next morning after being, having the biopsy done, and my brother is there, my aunt is there, and I'm thinking, why is my brother here? My brother never takes time off work. It's very, very strange. So for him to be there, I knew something wasn't right. So he came over and said, they did the biopsy, and Reisa, I'm sorry, but it's malignant. I'm like, it's what? I just had a baby. How is that possible? So I ended up crying, falling back asleep, waking up, I don't know, hours later. And yeah, just having to deal with it. I remember telling my then husband, God forbid something happened to me, go off, find a woman who will take care of Aiden the way that I would. But, go and be happy. But obviously that, I'm still here, almost 15 years later, 14 and a half years later. Yeah, been through a lot with surgeries and chemo and,
So what an interesting moment to hold the excitement and the love of bringing this new child into this world and all of the euphoria, and at the same time receiving a diagnosis that feels potentially like a life sentence. So how do you hold those two dichotomies, those paradoxes, if you will? How do you hold both to be true and then also find your way in moving forward?
I think at that point in time, I was so overwhelmed with, hold on a second, I just had a child and I have cancer. So I have to do everything in my power to fight because I want to be here to watch this kid grow up. So I think I didn't really get to enjoy, the newborn, all those kinds of things, because I was so worried about, okay, what's next? We need to figure out what kind of cancer it is, because they had no idea. It wasn't known at that point in time. It was an unknown primary metastatic to my liver. So they had no idea what type of cancer it was at that point in time. And it wasn't, I went through 5 weeks of testing, having an upper endoscopy, lower endoscopy, colonoscopy, every single orifice probed and prodded in my body to try and figure out what kind it was. And they didn't know. And finally at 5 weeks, I said, after he was born, I said, I just need to start something. Just get me on something. I need to start this fight. So it was hard. It was very hard, but my focus was making sure I stayed strong and stayed alive, because I wanted more than anything to be a mom. Growing up, my dream was to have 2 boys. I got my one, I'm good. So
beautiful
and strong. Yeah.
So when you talk about Aiden, your son, as being your lifesaver, can you expand upon that a little bit more? I think you just talked about it, but also how does that come through for you each and every day of your life now that he's 14 going on 15?
Yeah. So the cancer grew during pregnancy. So it was the growth hormones from pregnancy that made the cancer grow as quickly as it did. So without being pregnant with him, they would have never known that I had cancer, and therefore it could have been too late. So that's how I look at it, that he saved my life. So, I owe it to him, to keep fighting.
Yeah. That's amazing. So what is the diagnosis now? Like, what is it that you are fighting and struggling and thriving through?
Yeah. So today it is stage 4 neuroendocrine pancreatic cancer. So a lot of people think of Patrick Swayze and Farrah Fawcett and Steve Jobs. And his name slips me right now, the gentleman from Little House on the Prairie, you know, all had pancreatic cancer. So why do I get to be the one that is living and thriving? There's two different types of cancer, of pancreatic cancer. You know, you've got the bad kind and the good kind. Mine, fortunately, is the good kind, which the tumor is kind of encapsulated within itself. So if you think about a tree with roots, you know, that's kind of spreading everywhere. That's the bad kind that, you know, unfortunately, these other people had. And, you know, I have the good kind that, you know, is just in these small little tumors. So it is on my liver. I've got probably, I think, 4 or 5 small tumors, nothing greater than 1 centimeter at this point.
Yeah.
You know, with the different surgeries and treatments that I've had over time and currently going through chemotherapy once a month. You know, I go in every 4 weeks for my lanreotide injection. Takes me longer to drive to Stanford than it does, you know, to sit there and wait the 20 seconds while they, you know, stick the needle in my backside.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting because you and I know each other because both of our sons play on the same soccer team. And this is the thing, Reisa, that I just love about you is you go about your life. You are like, okay, I'm working full time. I'm following my son to his games. I am exercising. I'm out with girlfriends. That this cancer has not stopped you from living. In fact, maybe it's been a catalyst for even living more. Can you talk about how this cancer actually maybe has redefined how you look at how you live your life?
Absolutely. So, you know, I never want it to be a death sentence. And it's one of those things where, okay, I take everything with, I look at the negative and try and change it into a positive. And so, yes, you know what, I have cancer. People can think that, you know, yes, that's a death sentence. Oh, you know, I feel so sorry for you. Don't feel sorry for me because it has allowed me and enabled me to live the life that I do. It gives me a different perspective on things. You know, people, you have, you know, glasses and you have your blue light glasses and you see things differently. Well, so do I. And I live my life differently. So you know, I'm going to do what I can and I'm not going to worry about the little things that stress people out and road rage. And you know what? I don't know, something's not done right. Okay, but are you here? Are you living? And, you know, I remind my father all the time, he gets upset about, I don't know, something, right? 85 years old, there's always something.
Yeah. Oh.
But you know what? Did anyone die? You know, just continue to thrive and live.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you are looking at, you know, the inspiration that you are for your son and the inspiration that he then is for other friends, I mean, like I see your way of living very much how Aiden also is. So can you talk a little bit about your sweetheart and how you see him growing up in the world?
You know, I just want him to be the best version of himself that he can be. You know, I think we always want for our children more than what we had. And I think, you know, my parents provided so much for us that it's hard to think of, you know, how can that be any better? But, you know, raising him as a single mother, you know, I'm with him 24/7, 365. And so, you know, I want him to independent. I want him to thrive in the world. I want him to be the best version of himself and just be a good person, and do what he loves. Always do what he loves to do and what he's passionate about. And so if that means playing soccer and following your dreams, go play soccer, you know.
Great. And he just that he lives by that. And I just see the tenderness that he also has towards you and towards others. He seems to be that kid that just has a high degree of empathy and compassion and like just tapped into people. And I think that's very much a tribute to you and how you've raised him. So tell us more about, so you are a single mom now, your ex-husband lives in another country.
Yes.
And so it's not as if you haven't seen struggle, not only from the cancer, but just all of it. So there's this wonderful quote that oftentimes talk about with some of our guests is that, you know, this whole thought that struggle is where the magic happens. And so I'm curious what that quote says to you, or just if you can talk about some of the things that have been quote unquote struggles, but how you've learned how to move past them.
Yeah, you know, and when I hear that, right, about struggle, the first thing I say to myself is, you know what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so, going through what I've been through, you know what, cancer didn't kill me, divorce didn't kill me, being a single mother doesn't kill me, working full time in the Valley doesn't kill me. You know what? I'm freaking Superwoman, at this point. I mean, let's, turn around in circles and here I am, bam, bam. I guess that would be Wonder Woman. I don't know my characters. But you have to just keep fighting. Yes, divorce was not easy. My ex-husband and I are friends. We, have conversations about our son and what's going on in our lives. And, I think that's important. It's always a challenge. Yes. But, I do what I can for my son. I don't know if that's answering your question right away.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Well, the magic, I think, piece of it too, the silver linings that can come about, right? Even in the midst of what we might label as struggle. So when you think about, you talked about your outlook in life, right? But let's also, be real. It's not as if there aren't times that you're going to feel impacted by life, right?
So absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So what are either the things that you do or the people that you lean on when you need a boost?
Yeah. It's recently I was having one of those moments, right? It's like, what is going on, especially with COVID and the pandemic and trying to stay healthy and being able to avoid having COVID, these last 2 years, I'm just tired of it. I'm exhausted. How do I continue to stay positive and stay motivated? And, work is stressful and everything else that every single one of us in the Valley are dealing with. It's, nobody is immune to it at this point. I have an amazing group of friends, through my son, through soccer, like yourself, right? Through his school. Somebody told me at one point, you meet your best friends through your kid. And I thought, how is that possible? But you know what? My closest friends to me, my near and dear friends are my son's preschool mom friends, or, his elementary school mom friends, and, his soccer mom friends. And so I never feel alone, and I don't have a problem asking for help. If anybody who knows me knows that I don't have a problem reaching out. And that's something that actually cancer taught me, was it's okay to ask for help. I think that there's so many of us who struggle with being strong and, I'm stubborn, the Capricorn that I am, we are.
We can relate. We've had many talks about, oh man, it's a good trait. And sometimes stubbornness.
But, you have to ask for help when you really, really need it. And, that is something that cancer has taught me. But what do? I make sure that I get exercise in, and I make sure that I eat healthy, and I make sure that I have my outlet and I can go and talk to somebody. I'll talk to, my dad, my brothers, my sister-in-law, my girlfriends, my boyfriend, whoever's available. It's, and there's always somebody there. People are always willing to listen, and what you realize is you're not the only one.
Yeah.
You're not the only one. What you're going through, somebody else is probably also going through, but they just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. It almost gives permission for others to also be very vulnerable and real and say, oh, like, it's so great to hear you say that. Here's what's going on for me. And there's a deeper connection, right? At kind of at a deeper heart level.
Yeah.
Incredible. I know when we were talking earlier in our intake call, oftentimes what we'll do is provide gifts to our listeners, little resources. And we were talking about one of the neuroscientists that I had talked with and worked with. And he said, there's 5 S's to keep in mind. And I think what I just heard you say were kind of a combination of some of them. This is for us to stay and remain at our best version of ourselves. 1 S is going out and just getting in the sun. There's something about being outside in nature. Another S is knowing the practices that soothe you. Maybe it's a call to dad. Maybe it's a beautiful walk. Maybe it's yoga or meditation. The other one is, like you said, sweat, getting some exercise, getting the cortisol out of our body. And then also knowing that sleep is important, getting good sleep. And then the last one, and I think it's something that you do so well and probably not even meaningfully or meaning to it, is service. Like, how are you out in the world, and how is your kindness and your generosity something that is contagious? So I wanted to thank you for being that person. You really are incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Incredible.
Thank
Yeah. So is there anything that the scientists didn't get? Anything else that you can think of that's really
Oh,
important?
no, nothing that's not, no, I can't think of anything. I mean,
Yeah.
I have my vices, right? I mean, glass of wine doesn't hurt. You got to have your release. I don't know if it's not wine, then, I'm going to sleep or exercise until, I'm exhausted.
Exactly. But what I'm hearing is that it gives your mind a focus that is maybe not on the thing that might pull you down or pull you back. It's a
And it's
positive.
amazing when I am stressed and I say, you know what, I'm just going to go and take a walk. And I go outside and I'm walking for 15 minutes and that's it. And maybe I'll put on some tunes and maybe I won't. But it's amazing how much the fresh air and the sunshine and just getting your body moving changes your mood.
Yeah, it's incredible, incredible. So we'll put that together, I think, as our resource guide from you. It's just some of these tips and tricks. I think it's really incredible. So when you step back then, giving that sense of perspective, like you're out on a nice little walk under the sun, what are your hopes, Reisa? What are your hopes and dreams?
Oh God, that my son grows up to be a good human being. And I'm able to live long enough to see him grow up. That's really, I mean, it's simple. I'm a simpleton. I want to watch him grow up. I want to be here and be a part of his life. And be that role model for him. I asked him at one point, I said, you know what, when you think of your mom having cancer, what do you think about? No, I don't. I don't see it because you don't look like it. Okay. You don't act like it either, Mom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he sees me that way.
That's cool.
But I want to be there for him.
Yeah, of course. When you mentioned, COVID and everything going on in our communities, and of course, being immune compromised with cancer, it is very important, right, to stay healthy. What do you also see outside of your family, like for the community, even the country or the world at large? What hopes or dreams you might have as we maybe focus on how we live?
I just want everyone to be nice,
Yeah.
be kind. Negativity is wasted energy. We don't need it. It's not necessary. So many people are just mean. And what's the point? Just be nice. I mean, I have a girlfriend of mine who, when she does this and posts this, it warms my heart and it makes me realize, oh, I need to do more of this. She'll be in line at a fast food restaurant and she'll, pay it forward and buy the people behind her, whatever it is that they bought, and just for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need to do more of that. That's just being kind, just paying it forward. And I think that if everyone was just, put on a smile, be happy, make someone else's day, just, the world would be a better place. It's easier said than done because not everybody has that frame of mind and mentality, but it would be great if we could.
Yeah.
And I think people just get so caught up in, work and success and, what's the next thing I'm going to get in life. Okay. I just want to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something I think so brilliant about the simple, like you said, the simpleton aspect of what's really important in life. Is it all of the external things that I'm striving for, or is it what is really inside, which is my health, my well-being, the connections with the people that I care about deeply? And that really, when you boil it down, it's pretty simple.
It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
It's,
So
there's
powerful.
so many self-help books and they talk about all these things, and it's nothing that I don't think that anybody doesn't already know. It's that common sense,
Yeah.
but it's that good reminder about be a good person, do a good deed, be mindful of others around you.
Yeah. So important. I think the random acts of kindness is a really beautiful and brilliant way to kind of know that that's an action that we can do for being able to be, in that, how do we demonstrate kindness? It's one thing to be kind, and I think that's really important, and a smile. I remember that when my dad was sick, And when I was driving to, or it was even away from the hospital, and every now and again, I would go back to the hospital and he'd already passed on. And just remember that there are a lot of people in there that are by the bedside of people that they love, that they may be also saying goodbye. And it was like, how do you just have compassion in your heart? Because everybody's going through something different. It could be to that extent, or it could be something to a lesser degree, or maybe even a huge celebratory moment. And how do we just really be in that mode of kindness, support, compassion?
Oh yeah. And you know what, to that point, you never know what somebody has going on. You never know what someone has going on at all. I mean, somebody could look, like people look at me and think, well, you don't look like a cancer patient. Well, what does a cancer patient look like? Because I have hair, because I'm not ashen, and because I'm not tired and, overly skinny, that means I can't have cancer because I don't look like it. So you never know what somebody has going on. So, don't be so judgmental. Right. I mean, if you have to send a message to somebody, don't be so judgmental. Be kind.
Yeah.
We all have stuff. Every single one of us. Sometimes people may not want to admit it, but we all have stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Just so beautiful. And I think too, when we talked about what are your hopes and dreams. Is there anything out there that you fear, or anything that feels like a doubt that you're like, I want to put that to the side. Like, that's not going to own me.
Cancer is not going to own me. From the day I had it, one of the first fundraisers I did with my family is it was for the Live Strong Foundation.
Yeah.
And, my brother came out from New York, my dad came, and they did 100 miles on their bike. I think my dad ended up doing 50. I walked 5 kilometers, which I'm good. But one of the things that I said was, I have cancer. It will never have me. And so, that was, I wrote that on the back of my little bib, and they took a picture of it and they posted it in the magazine. And so it's one of those things where it's like, that's my motto. I have it, but it will not have me. It will never own me, because I have to, continue to live my life.
Yeah.
What do I fear? I have the fear of dying, right? I have the fear of not watching my son grow up, not being around for him. And those, these are the formidable years, the years that, he needs, to have his parent around. But I can't live in fear. It's not going to do me any good at all. You live in fear, you get stressed. Stress creates cortisol. Cortisol's tied to cancer. Oh, wait, I already have that. We don't need any of that.
Amazing. What I'm recognizing is that you can name, right? You're human. And of course, there are going to be things that are going to pop up that you're like, yeah, I wish this weren't so. And yet this ability to have a conscious choice that says, you're not going to own me. And to do what you feel is the way to live your life in a very positive and kind and strong way. It's incredible, Reisa. See what I mean on what an inspiration you are? And I know you don't even consider yourself one.
I don't see it. I don't see it. I think that anybody in my shoes would do the exact same thing. My boyfriend had a stroke a year ago, and he says, you're the one who provides me strength. You give me the strength to keep going. I look at you and I think everything that you've been through, and, it's like, no, I don't see myself as that person. I think that anybody in my shoes, having given birth to a child, then getting diagnosed with cancer, it's like, you're going to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you don't see it. And I think that's part of the beauty of you, is that you are a very humble and a very real and authentic individual going through life and talking about what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, all of it, having a glass of wine, like what have you. And at the same time, others around you see it. So thank you. Thank you for how you show up in this world. It's really powerful. Yeah. So I'm curious, as we kind of draw towards some of our collective questions, are there any other words of wisdom, thoughts that come to mind that we haven't already reviewed, that just is like, yeah, these are little Reisa-isms, ways that you choose to live your life?
A Reisa-ism. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I mean, that's kind of what I live by. I can't, that's really, that's my motto.
Beautiful.
I have cancer. It doesn't have me. I mean, I've said that so many times before.
Yeah.
Just have to, one thing that I've really tried to focus on these last few years, especially, during COVID, is you just have to live in the moment. Just be
Mm,
present.
yeah.
Something that my niece used to always say, with everybody sitting around at the table, is just be present. And so I try and live in the present. I try and live in the now,
Mhm.
versus focusing on what happened yesterday. We can't change it. Worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, that's not going to change it. So just living in the now and do what we can.
Mhm. That's awesome. Love that. And I think when we are there, there's so much joy. There's so much joy in the now. We're not uh, kind of regurgitating what's happened in the past and bringing that up as if it's still around and with us, or rehearsing for the future, a future that nobody knows what's going to happen in a moment. It could be different.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful way to be. So before, again, just kind of one more question. So how can our listeners support you? I know you mentioned being a very active volunteer with the pancreatic cancer. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more, Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. What is that about? What does it do? And how might our listeners support you in that cause?
It's an organization based in Southern California, and they provide a lot of resources to cancer survivors, their caregivers, on resources just in their general area about how can they get help, what studies are out there that somebody who has cancer might want to look into,
Mm,
and providing. What I do is I have my story out there on the website, and so if somebody says, okay, I'm was diagnosed at 36 years old and I want to speak to somebody who is in my same demographic, who can I speak to? And so, that my story is out there, and there's hundreds of other people who have their story out there as well, who are willing to help and willing to talk to people, and, you know,
mm,
go look at, go support the organization, however you wish. They have walks once a year, or actually in this area, they have it once a year. And so some girlfriends of mine and I, hopefully do that again this year. So we'll see.
yeah.
But just support the organization, do what you can. Think about people with pancreatic cancer.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you. I know that my husband's really amazing, amazing cousin who was almost like a brother to him. When he got diagnosed, you were really a wonderful support to our family and offering your love and kindness for going through the journey. And I just appreciate that. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. I think the hardest part when you're first diagnosed is you don't know. Nobody gives you a handbook. Nobody says, oh, here, you know what? Welcome to cancer diagnosis. Here's your handbook, and this is what you need to do, because everybody's journey is completely different.
Yeah.
Um, and it was difficult for us when going through and I was diagnosed, and understanding where to go. How do you find the right oncologist for you? How do you find the right resources for you? How do what studies are out there, what's going to help you? Nobody tells you those things. Nobody
Mhm.
tells you that you have options. You're in the hospital and you're about to die. Nobody knew what resources are out there for you. And so with my experience, hopefully I can provide those resources to people going through the same thing or something similar.
That's great. Thank you. And so before we go into our collected questions, you have a whole team, a staff of individuals that have been by your side, as well as family members. Is there anything that you would care to share or let them know about your gratitude and your grace for all of the individuals that show up for you?
Like the professionals, my oncologists and my doctors.
Sure.
Gosh. There's one doctor in particular who is not, unfortunately, my doctor anymore, because she moved to the East Coast. But, Dr. Pamela Coons, she was at Stanford. She's now at Yale. That woman, I think she really helped provide me with the lifestyle that I do today, because she has small children and she understands. She's in my demographic, roughly
Mhm.
about my age, small kids. And so what treatment can we give Reisa that's going to allow her to live the life that she does? Because there's definitely more aggressive treatments out there. Um, but she cared about me. She cared about, my lifestyle. And so, I thank her. I think my surgeon,
Yeah.
who cut my liver, twice and provided me, the ability to live the life that I do today and not do a Whipple when he possibly could. And, that's a whole nother conversation, but, yeah, it's
Wonderful.
my family, my friends,
Yeah.
there's too many to name, really.
No, I just
Way too
wanted
many to name.
exactly. But that's just
They
the
know who
beauty
they
of
are. They know who they
all,
are.
all of those individuals. It's just thank you, right? Because, we all need boosts. We all need support. We all need to know that, as you are part of an action network, you also have an active network that is around you. And so I know you
You know what? When I need the help, my friends show up. They're there without question. Sometimes I don't even ask, and it's literally on my doorstep. They know who they are, and I love them for it, and I'm extremely grateful. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, so how we end the podcast is just a set of collective questions that we often ask each of our guests, and it's just for you to be spontaneous, off the hip, first thing that comes to your mind. So are you ready?
Oh, bring it.
Okay. First question. What are you currently reading or watching?
I wish I could answer that. I have so many books on my nightstand that I haven't started yet. So I'm unfortunately not. And
Okay.
I have my silly shows that I watch. So
Yeah. What's your favorite silly show, out of curiosity?
it's a Chicago, like Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Something you and your son can enjoy together too, right?
He doesn't watch them with me. Are you kidding me?
He's doing his video games.
You know what? He would kill me if he knew that I was saying this, but he likes watching The Bachelor with me.
That's the best connection time.
Guilty pleasure.
Well, he's also in that phase of new relationship, how to be. So maybe there's some lessons there.
He knows what woman not to pick. He's like, Mom, they are so catty. That is so ridiculous.
I love it. So if you could eat dinner and engage in dialogue with anyone, past or present, who would it be?
My mother.
Yeah. Want to tell us a little bit about her?
Oh God. The most amazing woman that you'll ever meet. Sorry, I'm bringing up lots of emotions. She was taken way too soon. She was 79, still had so much life to give, but unfortunately Alzheimer's and dementia really got the best of her. She was there for me literally when my son was born, and she lived with me for pretty much 9 months while I was going through treatment and helping my ex-husband and I get through every day. And I would love to have one more conversation with her, one more dinner with her, one more listening to her laugh.
Yeah.
So very, very contagious.
Yeah.
Very contagious. Anyone that knew her knows her laugh. You get my brother and her in a room, and he starts going and she starts going, and it doesn't stop.
Oh, it's beautiful. What a great teacher she is for you and for your family, and really for all of us. So when you find, and you might have answered some of this even in a podcast, but what are the practices that you might do or say to yourself when challenges arise, just to remind yourself how to show up?
What do I say to myself? You got this.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think that's definitely my go-to. Yeah.
And our last question is simply, what are you most grateful for today, this moment?
For being.
Yeah.
Yep. Just being, waking up, having the life that I do. It's not perfect. It's not what, we envisioned when we're young. And, as little girls, we have this, huge idea of what we want our life to be like. But you know what? Just being, just happy, just content.
Yeah. Oh, well, I am so grateful for you, for our friendship, for your braveness and courage, for sharing your story, and for how you continue to be in this world. So thank you, Reisa, for being here.
Thank you, Christina.
Absolutely.